Hello, everyone. Welcome to not breaking down any DFS action. Of course, as you guys know, the Lunar New Year, I guess Chinese New Year, depending on, I'm not sure what the correct way to say it is, but the New Year break, I guess, for the LPL is starting. So we will not be having any LPL from now until February 10th. And then the LCK actually goes on a break as well here in a few days, till around the same time. They just only get like a week off, it looks like. So today I just want to still make something. And what we're going to do is I'm going to recap yesterday's games, or the slate yesterday. And then we're going to talk about like general power level of some of the teams. I know I did my tier list a couple days ago now, I think, but I feel like it was kind of a little rushed, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about going like through team by team and that sort of stuff. So that's what I'm gonna try to focus on. Recap these games. Try to break down the teams a little bit more, where I think they're at, and that sort of stuff. So, um, real quick, in case you guys are like here for DFS stuff, honestly, I kind of just advise don't play 2 game slates. Um, maybe there is you can play some like smaller stuff, but in general, if you're like unless you're like max entering the big $15 and you're doing like weird one-offs, like super unique random stuff, then I honestly probably wouldn't recommend you playing 2 gamers at all, especially in the LCK. This is something I touched on yesterday, but there's like 4 big teams. I think Damwon, Nongshim, T1, Genji are in like a tier of their own. Then in the mid tier, I think we have KT, maybe Sandbox. And then I think in the bottom 4, we have DRX, Hanwha, Fredit, and Kwangdong. So I think there's just going to be a lot of lopsided matchups, and I don't know. I'm just not a proponent of it. I do think there are ways to still continue to play it if you want to get your action down. Um, I think doing like single entry stuff and then just getting like a little bit weird. Like if there's a particular common build where, and then you just like people go like double mids or something, and just dropping down to double junglers, leaving money on the table, that sort of thing. But ideally, honestly, like I'm probably just gonna end up taking like these days off. I know it's gonna be a long break, but it's just not for me. And fortunately, I've been getting a lot of action down on sports betting recently, so I'm probably just gonna keep it going that way for myself. And yeah, I mean, best luck to you guys if you do it that way. I try to give like a quick run through of like maybe these games at least. Damwon should 2-0 Hanwha. I actually low key think like I don't know, Fredit's like just let me down, but Kwangdong this is like a close slow matchup. So, but maybe like Fredit Brion could be the dog you need to pair with Damwon. Genji 2-0 over KT, Nongshim 2 over DRX. Damwon T1 will be a good series, but I think Damwon is probably better here. T1 actually didn't impress me a lot that last night, but we'll recap that. And then Hanwha Sandbox, probably just Sandbox. I think they've shown just a little bit more, and I think they're in the like middle tier, slightly above Hanwha. So that's like my quick predictions. Who knows what'll change, but that's just where I'm at looking at the base level teams. To recap yesterday, I did want to talk about these games because I think they were actually pretty interesting. Where are they? Start of week 3. All right, here we go. So the first one was KT Sandbox. So I was a pretty big proponent of KT to win this series. I thought they were just aiming like better across the board. and I wasn't sure where Sandbox was going to be better, but they both looked pretty sloppy, especially like game two. Like, and then there's just like some weird drafting things. Like, I think especially when the LCS rolls around, I've heard a lot about the Senatom Kench being particularly popular in scrims. Uh, so I think we're going to expect that. Like, I feel like that's still a good bottom lane, despite the fact that they kind of got stomped in this one. I think Lux Caitlyn was just like played better by the better players, and KT got the job done in game one, but Sandbox brought it back and won in game two and three. So game two was pretty like standard. So KT just kind of fell behind and looked a little silly. Unfortunately, they had all their kills on life. This is the game, if memory serves, where they like had won every trade, but unfortunately, life had gotten like all the kills, and their support set was like 3-1, and it was just like kind of bad. I don't know how else to put it. That like it had they had a 3-0 jinx instead of a 3-0 set, it's probably a whole different thing. So I mean that's just like kind of unlucky, but at the same time you have to like play those better, I guess. So Sandbox get the game two win, then game three was just complete draft kingdom, not even close, complete gap in the drafting. Like Lucian Nami's not bad if you can bully lane, but they just weren't able to like do anything. They had no damage. This Rek'Sai looks so stupid. I don't know, like if you're drafting Rek'Sai in 2022, like you're just trying to lose, it feels like. So that's not ideal for sure. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like part of me, like I was on KT. I thought KT would 2-0 this pretty hard, and the fact that they kind of looked that bad is concerning. But we can talk about that when we get to the like team breakdown section. T1 Nongshim, if you guys remember, I was on the Nongshim side of this, but I thought it would be close. If memory serves, T1 was actually like kind of a sizable favorite. I don't remember. I think it was minus 230. But I said it would be like a coin flip, and it did feel like that. So I feel like overall we were kind of right. Although we didn't pick the right side of it, T1 got the best of them in game three. They just outscaled them too hard. The Korean Jace is just too strong. It's kind of crazy. Zeus looked pretty good. Fakers managed to get his poke down with the Azir. And of course, Gumayushi just being like such a star. I know people are like, this isn't going to be a unique or hot take, but like the two players to watch, I think, going forward, the next big stars are definitely Gumayushi and Cream. Like everyone obviously knows that, but still, I'm super excited for those players, and hopefully T1 continue to build upon it. They have looked a little shaky, so I'm not sure about them going into playoffs, but it's still pretty early on to make that call. Heading over to the LPL. Yep, this is right on it already. We had OMG get the 2-0 over Top Esports. This one I could not be more pleased with. You guys heard me rant about it for like 10 minutes yesterday. I'm saying Top Esports are frauds. OMG, you're getting no respect. We had to cash the big OMG underdog. Wasn't that big, but it was they were plus like 230 or 240 or something. So we love that, and they got the 2-0. I don't remember if I had said 2-0 or 2-1, but either way, I thought OMG were being pretty disrespected, and I think it's time people are starting to realize how bad Top Esports truly are. So that might suck a little for us because when we're ahead of those trends, we're able to kind of rake in that cash, and hopefully you guys all did as well last night. Like there was not many DFS scores worth noting except for OMG getting this huge 2-0, especially game one. Abel 14 kills, game two Cream 702. So as long as you four stacked OMG, you had money last night. I know I did, and I know that's what I was advising everyone to do. So hopefully you guys all did as well. And I think I like 7 or 8x my entry fees from the night. No, it was more like 6 or 7. That's probably a little exaggerative, but still, I profited pretty well last night, made out like a bandit, and hopefully you guys all followed my wave and were on the OMG train as well. I'm gonna have a lot to say about these teams when I get to the team breakdown, so we can kind of save a little bit for that. BLG RNG again. This is one where it kind of went as expected. RNG did get the job done in the third game. I expected more from the BLG side in the third game. But if you guys tell me if you've heard this one before, the game 3 Rek'Sai looked stupid and bad. It is what it is. Don't know why these teams are going back to the Rek'Sai. They did get the win with it in game 2, but I mean that's also with the Tryndamere, and Tryndamere was looking really strong in this BLG game. So I don't know what implored them to get for the Rek'Sai again in game 3, but it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, not a whole bunch. We knew this was going to be a close series. We know it was probably going to go 3, and it would be a close third map. The third map was actually not that close, but we were already like kind of good from the OMG side, so losing that coin flip here isn't the worst thing in the world. So remember how a few nights ago we had the right teams? We won 2-0. We picked the right teams, but the DFS scores weren't in our favor. This is one where things kind of neutralized and we got it back. I only had one right selection today. The only game I got right was the OMG Top Esports one. I had BLG win this LCK or LPL game, and they lost. And then over in the LCK, I had picked Nongshim and KT, and they both lost as well. So we're 1 for 4 for picks, but that's enough to win for DFS, and that's what makes DFS interesting in that aspect of things, where we get one series right out of 4, but we're still managing to cash it anyway. So yeah, that's gonna be it for recapping yesterday. We'll start in the LCK. We'll try to break down a little bit about where teams are and that kind of thing. So if you guys don't want to hear that, Lunar New Year will probably change some things. It's super early on into the first part of the season. I understand if you guys don't want to put a whole bunch of stock into that, but we're going to want to think about where teams are going forward and that sort of thing. So over in the LCK side, I think I've said this a few times now, but there are 3 tiers. I think there's like elite / competing for title tier, and that's Genji. I'll put this in order of who I think is the best. I'll go Genji, I'll go Genji, Damwon, T1, Nongshim. However, I think all these teams could beat each other. As you could probably will see, these are going to be the top 4 teams in the standings, but it's just kind of depending on who they are and where they are. Genji 5-0, T1 5-0. I think T1's record is a little inflated, but they're winning they're beating who they need to beat. So I'm excited for the if Genji and T1 play. This will be a banger series, but I've liked a lot what I've going through the teams. Genji, I've been super impressed with Dorian and Peanut. I liked them a lot going into the season, and they've kind of had the form that I had anticipated. Chovy, you guys know I'm not a big proponent of this player. I feel like he is just extremely overrated. That's not to say that I think he's bad by any means. Like, I know whenever you bag on a player, people always think you like take it so far. Like, I'm not saying Chovy is a bad player. Like, obviously him getting CS leads is a good thing. Like, I'm not going to argue that. What I am saying is that his perception gets overinflated because of those things, like his laning prowess. And just because you're like winning lane doesn't mean you're like the better player. Like, maybe you have more jungle proximity, you have your jungler around you more, and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know, and he just doesn't seem to really transition his leads into doing much with them. Like, he doesn't pop off in team fights really. It feels like he'll have this like incredible lane prowess, and he'll be up like CS and bully the enemy mid laner. But then when you get to team fighting, he's just like okay. He's just kind of like average to like a slightly above average. So I feel like his perception is just inflated. He's still obviously a great mid laner. He's going to be a top 10 mid in the world. Like, I'm not saying that. But I think people just love to like ride Chovy like he's a god and he's like a top 3 mid or like one of the best players in the world. I don't know. He just seems like good to me. So I don't know. Ruler is same. He's not quite as extreme, but his reputation kind of precedes himself, where he's a legend of the game. Especially on like the under the Gen G banner, but his currently is not like a crazy god like he was. But I like this team. I think they're probably the best team in the LCK. Looking at like a world favorite, and that sort of thing. So I probably have them number 1 in the LCK. Number 2, a little bit like a hot take maybe. I'm going to go with Damwon over T1 as the second best team in the LCK. I know that they're having like struggles with the top lane. I don't know. I'd imagine they bring in the top laner between spring and summer, and this will be a different team going into like Worlds, I'd imagine. Unless Hoya or Bertle like show themselves to be more valuable than they've looked. Which is a possibility. Again, it's early. I don't want to. I can't stress that enough. That this is early on into the year. We're still in January. We're talking about Worlds in October. So a lot to keep in mind there. But Canny and Showmaker still as dominant as ever. Duckdom and Kellen haven't really found their footing, but they're a bottom lane I believe in. Coming over from Nongshim last year. And of course, they had that close, great series with Gen G, who I think is number 1. So I'm going to put Damwon number 2. Hopefully, they kind of figure things out together a little bit more and look a little bit more cohesive. Heading down to the 3rd spot in the LCK, I have T1. The reason I have T1 here is just because they haven't really played anyone. I haven't seen a lot proven from them, really. And I just have a little bit distrust across the top jungle and mid. I know you guys are going to be like throwing up thinking about like why I said I don't really trust Faker that much. It's not that term I guess is a little misleading for what I mean for Faker. It's just, can he gap other top mids, which is who he's going to see when the time gets there? And I just don't know. Like, he's never going to be a problem. He's never going to be the reason why T1 loses a series. I'd imagine that would be on Zeus and Owner. But I don't know. Like, I think Gumayushi's obviously proving himself to be a star. Probably one of the best ADCs in the world. Probably top 3 or 5. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. But the same for Keria. Probably like top 3 or 5 for supports in the world. And then obviously we all know Faker's a solid, great mid. Like, I don't want people to get that twisted. I obviously love Faker and think he's a GOAT. But when it comes to performing now, it's a little bit different. And I'm just not sure with Zeus and Owner. And I'm obviously having them 3rd in the LCK. Like, I'm not trying to rag on them. They could easily come 1st. That's why I have them all in the same tier. But that's just where my thought process is for them and where their power level is. And then heading down to the 4th, which is the like last spot in the top tier, I think. of teams who can compete. I have Nongshim. Kana, Dread have looked absolutely crazy. They look like maybe the best top and best jungler so far in LCK. And we saw that when Nongshim played Damwon. Dread made Canyon look silly, which is something that I don't think anybody has ever said in their life. So that's something to consider. BDD again is just kind of like fill in. Like you guys hear me say this joke about like LCK or LPL support number 8 when I'm talking about like Cold and Hung and Crisp. I don't know, like those, like it just seems like they all are like the same player. And that's how it kind of feels a little bit with BDD and like Korean mid. Like they're all like, when you look at the mid lane names like in the league, there's like 8 good mid laners, 9 good mid laners, maybe like everyone except for Karis, honestly. And even then, you could maybe even say like Dove is like a good enough mid laner, considering he's role swapped and stuff. So, it's just crazy. Like he's good. He's never going to be a problem either. But I've really liked what I've seen from Ghost and Peter. Peter seems to like transform this team, which is a little bit surprising. Like I was a big proponent for Effort, but Effort didn't look that great in their one series, and they instantly swapped to Peter, which was a little concerning. But Peter seems to have brought in a voice and some shot calling and direction to this team, and I think that elevates these players a good amount. There just seems to be like a little bit of consistency lacking from competing against the likes of the Genji, T1, Damwon. I think they still can, and obviously again early on, but there just seems to be a little bit of edge missing from them. Hitting down to 5, we're going to start a new tier of middling, and I think I'm only going to have 2 teams here. I'm going to start with KT Rolster. I know they let us down yesterday, but they've looked strong, and my statement that I said for for BDD and LCK or LPL supports kind of applies, I feel like, to KT across the board. Like Rascal and Cuz are good. Arya and Aiming in Life, they're good, but they don't have any like star really, and a little bit of inconsistency, like losing to I forgot how already. They lost to Live Sandbox yesterday. I mean, I do have Live Sandbox and KT right next to each other. Spoiler alert. I think I said it earlier, but like, I don't know. I don't feel like there's not a lot to talk about. They're average. They play average. Their names are average. They are extremely average, and that's why they're in the average place of 5th in the LCK. Again, in like the second tier of not in the bottom, not in the top. That's all you really kind of need to know. And I feel like a lot of that same applies to Live Sandbox. Now that they've swapped to Ice and Kale, this is a move I was not a proponent for. I did not like it at all. But they've actually looked better. I don't know if Ice is like talking or something, but they've looked good. I think Krako's like low-key pretty underrated jungler. And I think Dove is coming into his own as the top laner, and Closer, of course, coming over from T1, where he was under the Faker like spotlight, I guess, or under his wing, maybe you could say. So I'm liking the Live Sandbox team. They've proven a good amount to me so far, and that's why I have them up in 6th. And not a lot really to write home about there. And that brings us into the bottom tier, where I think the 4 worst teams are, and they can all kind of beat each other. And that's why I have them in the tier like that. When it comes to who is the 7th best team, it feels a little like you're like kind of splitting hairs down here. But I'm going to go with DRX, actually. This might be like a little bit of a surprise, but I think they're actually kind of starting to figure some things out. And they've actually started looking decent in their last couple games. So, that's what I'm thinking, at least. Remember preseason, I was talking up these names a bit. I thought Deft and Barrel would be able to do a lot more through the bottom lane. I thought Zika coming over from the LPL would be able to do a lot more as well. And then you have Kingin and Pioshik, solid players. Maybe Pioshik is somebody who I'm like maybe giving a little bit too much of a pass to. considering he had like one great split or like one great year, and then kind of hasn't done anything since. But I still think like when you display such a high level of talent that it's just hard to imagine that it vanishes like that so quickly. So I'm still going to give him a little bit of a pass. Maybe that's a mistake, but I've liked them a good a bit. That's a team like kind of to watch, maybe to climb up the standings as we go forward. But as for now, they haven't shown a lot of cohesion. So I'm going to leave them 7th. So in the 8th spot, we have to choose between Fred Brion, Hanwha Life, and Kwangdong Freaks. This one's tough. I feel like we're kind of splitting hairs down here. So I'm just going to go with maybe another unpopular choice here and go with Fred Brion. I feel like they've just had like more macro and they've had just more synergy. They actually have like some decent things that I like when they do. It just doesn't happen often. Obviously, that's why they're at the bottom. Their players, they don't have like stars really. Morgan still just seems like he's unable to perform in the LCK. I don't know what that is because he was actually a good top laner in the LPL. So I'm not sure why he's just kind of lost in the LCK. But I think they actually have like good teamwork, good team cohesion, and I like them going forward. To hopefully continue to find some series through macro and upset some teams and have a decent, like a standings spot from there. I don't want to spend a lot of time going through 9th and 10th in the LCK because we have 17 teams in the LPL, so I want to try to get through those as well. So I'll say Kwangdong 9th, Hanwha 10th. I know the standings don't reflect that, but we're still early, obviously, so I think Kwangdong just have better players. I think they'll be able to figure out some things a little bit better. Right now, it seems like it's Keen V9. Like, he's just on his own and playing against everyone. Like, Teddy, Hoyt, Fate, and Elam have all looked so bad. I don't know. Like, both these teams are bad. Like, you could almost argue that these two teams are kind of in their own tier, but obviously, like, I don't think that's always going to be the case, so I think the just individual talent is not there for Hanwha. They seem to be lacking a lot. I think they're going to end up sliding all the way down to the 10th spot. But again, you're kind of splitting hairs down here. Again, Kwangdong, I think, have the names to pick it up, but they haven't shown any signs of doing so. So that's why I'm going to leave them in the 9th spot. So that'll round out where I'm leaning in the LCK. Heading over to the LPL, we have a lot of teams, so this might take a while, but if there was a time to talk about this, we can go now. So starting off at the top, tiers might be a little tougher in this one just because there's so much crossover and stuff. But I think you kind of have to have like a big 3 for now, I'd imagine. LNG, RNG, and EDG. Based on their performances now, I think it's fair to have LNG 1, maybe EDG 2, and then RNG 3. How do I think they'll finish is a different story, but based off what we've seen for now, I think LNG are probably the best team in the league. I think they've just shown a lot more cohesion, and they just seem to my apologies. Things just have seemed to click for them sooner than everyone else, it feels like. Tarzan and Doinby are insane in their roles. Ale is coming into his own. He's looking like a great player. I meant to say that for Light. Light is like coming onto his own and looking great, looking like a real carry on this team. And we haven't seen a lot from Ale. Like he's somebody I expected to have like a high kill participation and kill share and be like a monster in this league. We haven't quite seen that yet, but it also feels like they haven't kind of asked him to yet either. So, I mean, it is what it is a little bit in that aspect, but, it's going to be tough. I think they're going to have to maybe figure out support. Like, I don't think Lumau's going to be the answer. I'm probably just gonna be riding the start a Wandy hype train, just like everyone else. But you know, if they continue winning, there's no reason to change things up. So you know, we'll leave it at that. I believe I have EDG as the number 2 team. This will probably be maybe a little surprising, but I mean they're in the hunt. They're going to be competing for championship. I think no problem. Again, it's the same team that won Worlds. There's not a lot to kind of talk about. They're super strong. They look good. They have just kind of not played anyone, if memory serves. They've beaten OMG, JDG, and then Thunder Talk and Ultra Prime. So they're yet to play like other like elite teams. It feels like. Although I do like OMG, like a good amount, they're probably not in like the upper echelons. So that's just the only thing. And then their top laner swapping is also just a little concerning. That's enough of a question mark for me to like move them down out of the number 1 spot. I love Flandre, but again, there's just a little bit of like, why are they swapping top laners? I'd imagine that's just a like, I don't know. It's something to like keep an eye out for. But then we head down to the third team I have in the LPL is RNG. Again, this is a team I was super high on early in the year, and although they've looked a little shaky, they're still not bad. Obviously, I have them as the 3rd best team in the third or in the best region. But I think they kind of showed something against BLG, and maybe you could argue that RNG is like 1 or 2. Like I'm not gonna within tiers. I'm not gonna argue between spots with you because that's pretty subjective as well, I believe. But I think they have great players in every spot, so I'm expecting a good bit from them going forward, and I think they will continue to improve, mesh, gel together, and kind of use all of their superstars that are across the board in Bin, Xiaohu, Gala, and then great supporting elements with Wei and Ming. I think this team has potential to be the best team in the world, and I think they haven't looked at like it so far, but they can, and hopefully they will. Heading down, I think we're gonna have a micro tier here of not quite champion content like favorites, but championship contenders. And I think it's going to be another 3 tier with Weibo, BLG, and V5. And I'll put FPX at the bottom of that tier as well. So the 4th best team, I believe, is BLG. I think they've looked really, really good. Doggo and Crisp, especially the bottom lane of BLG, have looked extremely clean. I'm liking what I've seen from them so far pretty heavily. I think Fofo, Weiwei, and Breathe are still kind of finding their footing a little bit as well. However, like it's fine. Like they're doing fine. I think that's kind of what's separating them from the top tiers right now is Breathe. It just seems like he just hasn't been the same player necessarily. Like I feel like there's just a little bit of like impact missing from him. And then the same for Fofo. I feel like we haven't had a signature Fofo performance yet either. So that's the only thing keeping me from putting them in that top tier, but I still think they're in it. And I just hope that I never see anybody talk about Uzi the rest of the split. Thank you. Heading down to number 5. This one's a little tougher, but I'm going to go with Weibo. I know I've been like a little bit of a Weibo hater, so this might come as like a little bit of surprise, but trust me when I say like try not to get my emotions mixed between my actual like thoughts. I know maybe I'll say some dumb things about Weibo. They were actually like a darling team of mine not too long ago, but that was with Sword Art and Bin. He was there. Bin played for them, right, on Suning? I'm not crazy. Yeah, it was Bin. So when it was Bin, SOFM, Angel, Huanfeng, and Sword Art, that was my darling team. And I don't know, now like On and the Shy just seem to like cost them so much. It feels like, I don't know. There's just like something with this team that kind of makes me worried about them. Like this feels like a team that could like collapse like at any time. And that's just something where I don't know, like I just their performances are still decent. Like I have them as the fifth best team, but there's just something there where I'm just wary of them and waiting for their collapse. It feels like. So I mean they're good. I think SFM Angel and Huanfeng are crazy, but again it's tough. It's tough, I think, when you have the Shy. I know a lot of people are going to be the Shy stands and maybe get triggered, but the Shy is not good. He hasn't been good for a while. I'm not sure what people's obsession with him is. It's just, it feels like it's like a, oh my god, he's so quirky the way he ins lane sort of thing. Like, I just don't understand what the obsession is there, but yeah. But they're still decent. They're still performing, so you got to give them credit there. The sixth best team, I think, in the league right now is V5. I think they've actually looked really strong, and they're still pretty underrated, like relative. I think V5 low-key has like potential to be up there as like a strong like competitor team, which I guess is what this tier is called. So that kind of is true, but again, there just seems to be like a little bit lacking of conviction there. They seem to be pretty heavily dependent on like Rookie and Photic getting crazy like team fight advantages, and I don't think it's going to be like necessarily a repeatable recipe for success. I think they're going to need a little bit more from Rich, and that's kind of it. Like honestly, PP God's been decent. Photic's not been asked of a lot, but he's been okay. Karsus had some good performances. I think he's been a little inconsistent. That's just kind of where my like slight hesitations lie, because of that. Hopefully they'll continue to improve. I think Rich wasn't able to get into the country for a while, so now that they maybe have like a break with him and he can get more integrated, they will continue to improve. Who else did I have in this tier? Weibo, V5, BLG. Yeah, so the seventh best team and the end of my championship contenders series, or not series, tier at the seventh best team. I'm going to put FPX there. Now, I want to add that I think they should be playing Beishuan. I know Klid is going to be perceived as the better jungler. Maybe he is. Maybe I'm just wrong. That is definitely a possibility. I have been known to not be perfect, as a lot of people are. But, like they looked so good. They were 3-1 with him. I don't know why they're swapping that out. Like if Klid is the one going forward, then he is, and that kind of changes things. But you can't blame him then. But I don't know. It's just not ideal, I think, to have that. Sorry, I'm trying to think like how I should word this. It's just like they've looked good. I like Jalohu, LWX, and Hung have been decent. Gory's been underperforming a little bit, but again, like moving country and super early, I don't want to give him the like stamp of death that he's just not good or something. So we'll leave it at that. I think with them, maybe you could argue that they're at the top of the next tier, which is fine. But I think they've shown enough and they've had good macro and have looked strong early on. And then starting at 8th, this will probably just be like middling tier, probably in the playoffs, but I wouldn't expect a lot of damage from them. Tier, I'm going to have OMG, JDG, Rare Atom. And how I'm going to rank those teams is I'm probably going to have OMG at the number 8 spot. I know I know like 2 days ago I said that they were like in the D tier, but I've actually been super impressed with their macro recently. And this is something that I didn't realize until I was rewatching the games yesterday in preparation for the OMG TES series. And it's that they're actually like finding gold leads and stuff. And it's not the fact that they're just having like crazy performances from Abel and Cream, and like it's not just that their players are getting crazy like advantages. It's it's the fact that they're getting leads and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I just like this team. I feel like they're getting it together. They're looking strong. They're growing together. Um, like Aki isn't ideal, but he's good enough, I think, for now. Like Cream is blossoming into an absolute star. Shanji is a rookie, but he's still improving, finding his way. And then Abel has shown a great level of skill as well. So that's why I'm having them up so high. Again, not like competing. I have them as the eighth best team in the league, which is good. So not a lot to like complain about there. Going down to ninth, I'm going to have JDG. This may seem like a little low. Like I wouldn't blame you for having JDG higher. There just seems to be like a little bit lack of conviction there, especially just through top and mid. Like I actually am a big fan of Kanavi, Hope, and Missing, but Yagao and 369 just have not really done it for me, if I'm honest. So that's just like my hesitations there. I love Kanavi, Hope, and Missing are pretty strong, I think, in their like roles and what they're asked to do. 369 and Yagao just kind of been underperforming for me. So that's the separation between why I have them like lower than a team like OMG. Down to is this? Let's see. I had OMG 8th, so JD 9th, and then for the 10th place spot, I guess I'm not sure where I'm at in the standings, but at the last spot in the third tier, I'm going to have RA. This is maybe like a little controversial. I know people are still pretty bullish on RA, but I like them a lot. Like I feel like they've shown a good bit early on, but they still just have iBoy, which is a problem. I know people are like still gonna be a fan of him. Like I feel like he's just like a name that people know, which is a problem, and a lot like this is a lot like the Shy, a lot like Jackie Love. Like he's just an old school LPL name that people know, so they just assume he's still good, which is just not the case. He's still just like ints games out and runs it down, and he's just a like kind of a problem, not in the good way like the Tyler one way, but he's just a bad player to have. So that's my problem with RA. I like what I've seen from Strive and Zora. Hopefully Zora comes back as a starter. I'm not sure why Yu Yanjo was playing for them, but hopefully Strive and Zora can continue. Then we know, I feel like Cube is low-key underrated as like one of the best players in the world, but like one of the best top liners in the world, I should say. But I feel like with Leon and iBoy, there's just a little bit too much holding back this team from like greatness. But we'll see how Strive and Zora progress. I believe that should start us off at tier 11 or at number 11. And this tier is you're not completely trash, but you're also not going to be competing for anything either. And I think starting off that tier, we're probably going to go with Top Esports. They are already there in the 11th spot. I mean, everyone knows my proponent to pick against Top Esports, but that's because they've been like favored a good bit over other decent teams. Like I still don't think they're completely useless, but they just have no voice. They have a complete lack of direction and authority, it feels like. That's really where my problem is currently. And like their names are still good. Like I'm not doubting Xiaopong, Knight, Zoom, Zhou, Jackie Love. Like those are still good, decent players. Like they're gonna be better than the teams below them. Obviously, that's why I have them in like 11th. But they just have no cohesion, leadership. They have no voice. They have no shot calling. So that's the problem really for me, and why this team concerns me. Maybe they'll be able to find some semblance of cohesion when we come back from the Lunar New Year. That's what a lot of people are going to hope for. But we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. But currently, I think they've looked bad. We'll see how they're like priced and stuff going forward, which is why I bring that up. But based on what we have, really, yeah, I'm gonna leave them there in the 11th. They're probably gonna be better than lower end teams just off of pure skill, but not a lot to go off of, really. Not a lot of like positives to build off of is kind of what I meant. Are there any other teams I want to put in this tier? Yeah, I'll go ahead. I'll throw ahead Ultra Prime in this 4th tier in the 12th position. Cryan, Elk, Shousey, Hacker have low-key been like decent. I think this team, I want to say they've had like a rough schedule. Let's see, they 2-0'd IG, they beat LGD, and then they lost to LNG, EDG, and Top. So they lost to 2 of the top teams. They beat 2 bottom teams, and then they lost to a team right next to them. So Ultra Prime is a team I like going forward. They play AL on the 11th, so that'll be interesting. But I've actually liked from this team. Yeah, maybe in hindsight, I'm just gonna call the audible. I'm gonna put Ultra Prime above Top. I'll have Ultra Prime in 11th, Top in 12th. I feel like they've shown just a lot more cohesion and teamwork and skill overall. So, and I think like they'll be able to get more things together. Like Elk has been crazy good for them. Shousey's been good. Hacker's been okay. Cryan's been okay. A little underperforming for me, but I don't think he's bad. A lot of people are going to overrate that. ZS has been a little bit of a problem. He hasn't been that great, unfortunately. So that's not ideal. However, like it's kind of fine still, So, you're arguing for the 12th best team in the league here. So you're not saying a lot of positives. But I actually like what I've seen from them so far. I think they're going to be a team I will like going forward from betting and DFS standpoint. I think they're going to be a little underrated in that market. Sorry, I've been talking a while. I don't know how long this video is, but I need a drink. We can kind of like speedrun the bottom tier. I think when you get to the bottom 5, it's pretty apparent that LGD, IG, Anyone's Legend, Thunder Talk, and WE deserve to be here. It's just how do you parse them out? For the 13th best team, I'll put LGD here. I think that's fine to have them as the best of the worst. They've been decent. They've been not bad. Well, I guess it's a little false considering that they have been bad and they're in the bad tier, but I think they're like a little overhated on, if that makes sense. Like they're not that bad, and I think they've shown some positive signs, and I think they have room to improve as well. I think they have like individually decent players. They just haven't been able to like put it together necessarily. So that's where my problem resides with this team, and they're not bad. I don't think, well, they are bad. I keep saying that like in the wrong aspect, but like there's just something missing there, and hopefully they can like find things together. I think this is low-key a roster that can put things together, but so far what they've proven is not much, and I think they'll be able to like beat up on some other lower teams and they'll have some close series, but not a lot there really, I think. So when we move down to the 14th spot, I'm gonna have Thunder Talk here in 14. I know this is probably like a little controversial maybe, but I've actually kind of liked what I've seen from them. I like how they play heavily through bot side, and again, this is kind of going off of something maybe a little outdated, so maybe this is something of a problem. But I think Puff and Southwind have shown that they can carry lower end teams. Like that's what they did with Vici a while ago. New has kind of risen a little bit and shown that he's, can kind of get something done there. So I think the more that comes out of this team, like they'll just continue to fly high and improve. And I think they have like a little bit higher of a ceiling than probably the other teams down here. But it's a lot of it's going to depend on Frigid and Captain, and we just haven't seen a lot, and that's why they're down here in like the 14th best team. So 15, I'm going to go Anyone's Legend. You could maybe make a case for IG here, but I just feel like AL have better players and they have a little bit more potential. ZDZ and Zhao Hao are still young players. They're going to continue to learn and improve. And I think having Maple Betty and Chocho, they should be a lot better. They just need to like learn anything macro wise, and they'll be like decent. They just continue to bleed gold leads, but they win team fights. So that gives me some hope. That is like kind of what I'm leaning with this team, is that they will like hopefully figure out how to not just lose everything on the map all the time, and then they'll be able to actually like beat some like lower and then even maybe some like middling teams. Like their team fighting prowess that they've shown has been pretty crazy. Like they were winning fights pretty decently against Weibo. So I think that's something going forward to keep an eye on. Maybe they can get things together, but my hopes aren't that high, and that's why they're the 15th best team in the league. For 16, I'm going to go IG at the bottom here, so I don't want to waste too much time, but I don't know. They brought in Zika to replace Neni. I just don't know why. Jun is okay. He's looked okay, but it's hard when your team is bad. And then Yuakai and Zhao Yueji just have shown like nothing of like skill really for the LPL level. So there's just too much concern here. They're the 16th best team, I think, at the moment. Maybe the things will come together for them after the break. It's probably going to be the case for a lot of teams, but I think there's just they just haven't really shown much anywhere really outside of like jungle and top, and then even now that they're replacing Neni with Zika is concerning. So coming up in last, Team WE. This team is just really bad. I don't know how else to say it. Like they were already subbing in Jing for Stay. Kadaya hasn't looked good. Shanks hasn't looked good. View hasn't looked good. BBO hasn't looked good. Like I think they're just like the worst team in the league. There's not. I don't think there's a lot to. I don't think it's a lot to like say really. I think they're the worst team in the league. Their players are bad. They've shown like nothing. They showed nothing individually. All that stuff. So, that's just the problem really there. Just haven't shown anything. Worst team in the league for me, and I think that'll wrap it up for me. I don't know how long this is, but hopefully you guys made it through, and we can try and keep like these updated and keep seeing how things progress, and we can continue to see how these things will go. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys watch the whole thing, I appreciate it. I know this was a long, just randomly not DFS video, so if you guys watched it, it means a lot. And thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time. I'm not sure. I'm going to try to get out a CSGO video that explains how to play CSGO and all that stuff. So if you guys are here for League of Legends, hopefully you guys tune in and try out CSGO. We have a good tournament coming up on the 28th with a lot of good teams. So it'll be a good time to get started, and hopefully you guys can find another esport to fall in love with like I have. Thank you guys.